Vea and Lea huddled together in a dimly lit room, shivering in fear. Suddenly, the heavy wooden doors creak open, and a tall man in a white gown walks in. But it's what's beneath the gown that sends shivers down girls' spines. A dark green uniform with a black and white cross. The man clutches a shiny black bag, his eyes glinting with cruel excitement. As a nearby nurse silently prepares a syringe, Vea breaks down in tears. The man approaches her with a reassuring smile. He reaches down into his pockets and pulls out candy and chocolate. The girl hesitates but accepts the gift. For a second, she feels calm and safe. Her sobs slow down, but then a piercing scream tears through the air. She turns around just in time to see the needle plunging deep into Lee's chest. The nurse doesn't even flinch. She keeps working as if nothing happened. Minutes tick by. The man checks the dead girl's pulse, calmly picks up a surgical scissor, and with practiced and precise moves, he removes her eyes. It all started a few years earlier, in September of 1939. After a period of constant lies, the Nazis invade Poland, swiftly taking over the country and integrating much of its territory into the Third Reich. But simply ruling over a nation isn't enough. The Nazis have a terrifying vision for society, built on a strict racial hierarchy. Germans stand at the top, could never have imagined. Right below them are the Nordics, Danes, Scandinavians, and the Dutch. They were Germans once, but deviated from the right path. So what about my ancestors, the Poles? They are right at the very bottom of the list. Most are Slavs, whom the Nazis consider subhuman. Worse still, 3 million are Jewish, ultimate enemies of the German race, destined for only one fate: death. With millions of potential victims now under their control, the Nazis eagerly apply one of their favorite ideologies: eugenics. This pseudoscience has already fueled euthanasia programs targeting vulnerable Germans and led to some gruesome medical experiments on those deemed racially inferior. As the war intensifies, Nazi leaders such as Heinrich Himmler shift these experiments towards a new goal: creating super soldiers. Men who could fight under any condition, resist any disease, and endure extreme weather. This goal becomes even more urgent after June 1941, when the invasion of the Soviet Union forces millions of German soldiers into brutal and unforgiving climates. By 1942, these experiments are conducted on a large scale, places like the Ravensbrück concentration camp. But nothing even comes close to Auschwitz-Birkenau. The name is synonymous with the Holocaust. Entering the camp means certain death. Captives, mostly Jews, are pulled into a vast labor camp, where every task grinds down their will to live. They witness other prisoners collapse from exhaustion, get shot without mercy, or vanish into the chambers, never to return. Hope is a distant memory, and each day steals more of their spirit, leaving behind shadows of the people they once were. Holocaust survivor Primo Levi writes about Auschwitz,
"But where we are going, we do not know. Will we perhaps be able to survive the illnesses and escape selections? Perhaps even resist the work and hunger which wear us out, but then, afterwards, we traveled here in the sealed wagons. We saw our women and our children leave towards nothingness. We, transformed into slaves, have marched 100 times backward and forward, our silent labors, killed in our spirit, long before our anonymous death."
The best hope for inmates is suffering an injury and being sent to the infirmary, a brief escape from the camp's unending horrors. But again, unsurprisingly, Nazi doctors are not on their side. Oh no. And from the moment this man arrives in May 1943, Auschwitz descends into a new level of terror. It's 1943, 5:30 in the morning. Thousands of exhausted prisoners stand in line for roll call, their eyes hollow and their bodies frail. A medium-height, dark-haired man with a new tight-fitting SS uniform and spotless white gloves steps in. His glistening black boots and polished cane catch the first rays of the sun. He has a gentle manner and a quiet poise. Only a gap between his upper two front teeth spoils the illusion of perfection. He strides to the center of the parade ground, lifting his head to survey the scene, and smiles with satisfaction. As he passes by, the German soldiers look in awe. They recognize the first-class Iron Cross pinned to his coat. It's the highest symbol of heroism and dedication to the Third Reich. One soldier, the assistant of the camp commandant, Rudolf Hoess, steps forward to greet the newcomer. "Herr Doctor," he says, "please come with me to the infirmary." The new Auschwitz physician is Josef Mengele, one of the most ambitious and talented doctors of his generation, according to the Nazi standards at least. At just 32, he already holds a PhD in anthropology and has worked with some of the most renowned medical professors in Germany. His expertise? Human genetics. His passion? Crafting the perfect human, the ultimate embodiment of the Aryan race. When he was in Vienna in 1933, he studied under a well-known pediatrician and devoted Nazi, Dr. Franz Hamburger, who advocated for the euthanasia of babies with physical or mental disabilities. Wait, what? I'm sick just reading about it. But Mengele fully embraces Hitler's and Himmler's vision. Babies and humans in general are insignificant. The only care of a true German doctor is the health and prosperity of the German race. And for this goal, any means are justified. That's Mengele's motto. During his research, Mengele has developed a disturbing fascination with twins. He sees them as nature's key to rapid, selective reproduction, a cornerstone of Nazi ideology. While other scientists have tried for years to find a sufficient sample of twins for their experiments, Mengele saw himself as the chosen one. As one of his victims, Eva Moses Kor later reveals.
He wanted to play God. He wanted to find, by trial and error, how to create blue-eyed blondes, males or females in multiple numbers.
His new position at Auschwitz feels like a reward for bravery on the Eastern Front. This place of unimaginable suffering will become his personal laboratory, his zoo, as he calls it. Dwarves, disabled, pregnant women, and countless others will be his subjects, their bodies the keys to his twisted pursuit of knowledge and power. 1944. It's a cold spring morning in Auschwitz. Dr. Mengele wakes up. It's 5:30 and he finishes a letter to his wife Irene over breakfast. She's pregnant with their first child, a boy. As he seals the envelope, Mengele cannot hold a thought to the children he treated yesterday, the Offer brothers. Tibi and Moshe Offer were 12 years old when they arrived at Auschwitz. Tibi, the elder twin, particularly caught Mengele's eye. Moshe still vividly remembers the first day they met the doctor. The curious look in Mengele's eyes when he interviewed them about their physical and mental health. The days that followed were a blur of endless measurements, every millimeter of their skulls recorded, every tiny difference noted as if it held the key to some great mystery.
The first experiments were just one thing: compare. Compare different body members like eyes, compare height, noses, everything external, just compare. This went on for many hours and days.
In the early days, the twins Tibi and Moshe were kept together in Block 15 of the men's hospital, where they were brought to a laboratory for experiments. One day, Moshe was terrified at the sight of a massive needle meant for him. Mengele sensed his fear and came close. He gave him a candy, reassuring him that everything would be all right. Right when Moshe was ready to relax, the needle plunged deep into his arm, sending a sharp, searing pain throughout his entire body. But it was nothing compared to what would happen to his brother. They took Tibi away for what doctors called special experiments. When he returned, he was no longer the brother Moshe had known. Mengele operated on his spine, leaving him paralyzed and unable to walk. From that moment, Tibi's fate was sealed. Weeks later, they took him again, this time to remove his sexual organs, likely to send them to a laboratory in Berlin for further examination. Tibi could no longer move nor speak. He was a shell of his former self. He was taken a third time not long after, but nobody knows what they did to him. And one day, they took him away one final time. Moshe would never see his brother again. And this monster forgets about torturing kids in less than a day? It's unreal. For Mengele, these experiments are merely a step toward his twisted scientific ambitions. But for Moshe, they mark the end of everything he had known. In a later interview, he breaks down as he relives the pain and horror that affects his life even today.
مش بيسيب لي رالي Er hat mir Gift gespritzt. Bis heute weiß ich nicht was. Als Ergebnis seiner Experimente bin ich zu 2/3 behindert. Mein Körper zittert. Ich bekomme epileptische Anfälle. Was für ein Leben.
But even so, he could consider himself lucky, if one may even dare to say so. In most cases, Mengele took advantage of the death of one twin by killing the other, allowing him to perform parallel autopsies on identical bodies and gathering more data for his research. But Mengele's cold efficiency wouldn't stop with Moshe's suffering. His work would continue relentlessly as ever, bringing even more pain. As the sun rises over Auschwitz, many mourn the loss of their loved ones, while Mengele calmly prepares for another day at work. Today, his duties is to oversee the arrival of new inmates. It's a tedious task and the weather outside's freezing, but Mengele is excited. After all, he will have the chance to handpick his new guinea pigs. As the train slowly stops at the station, Nazi soldiers rush to the wagon screaming, Penned in cramped boxcars for days, the deportees from all around Europe squint their eyes in the sunlight, distorted after the prolonged darkness.
שהוציא אותנו מהקרונות, מלא אססים עם כלבים, המון אנשים, בלגן גדול, וצעקות שמישהו צועק שם צווילינגן, שזה בגרמנית תאומי.
Tired, scared, filthy, sick, hungry, thirsty. Men, women, and even children. They cling to one another as the guards yank away their luggage and push them around mercilessly. Inside the train, bodies of those too old, too young, or too frail to survive the journey without food or water lie still. There is a distinct stench of death in the air. An officer explains in German, a language most don't speak, that they will be separated into two groups. Those fit to work will be shown to their posts immediately. The rest, the elderly, the young, mothers with small children, and anyone too weak to labor for the Third Reich, will be sent to the nearby villages where new homes await. At least, that's what he says. And you can always trust a Nazi, right? Mengele watches the scene unfold, patiently waiting as the line of new arrivals slowly forms. He whistles a Wagnerian aria, casually directing prisoners to the left or right with the flick of his wrist. But it's not just his actions that stand out, it's the chilling indifference with which he observes the chaos before him. Children scream as they're ripped from their fathers. Men and women plead desperately for one last hug before being separated forever. Many already sense the awful truth. Talk of villages and new homes is a cruel lie. This is a place of no return, a place of death. And the man in the polished uniform, calm and unwavering, has just sent them to die. And what happened with the twins Mengele selected during this routine? The two sisters, Judith Barnea and Leah Huber, remember.
אחר כך לקחו אותנו לבלוק הזה של תאומים, שהיו שם הרבה תאומים, בכלל לא ידענו שיש כל כך הרבה תאומים. אנחנו שמה ואנחנו מוכנות תמיד, מתי שקוראים לנו, ללכת לניסויים. זה מה שהתפקיד של התאומים. עשו כל מיני ניסויים, וזה כאב, ואז אנחנו צרחנו. הם לא הסכימו, הם רצו שאנחנו נהיה שקטים ושנעשה מה שהם רוצים. אלה שהיו חלשות ולא היו נראות טוב, הם לקחו אותם, לא המשיכו, לא חזרו.
Miss M, another of Mengele's victims, recalls,
I was about 5 weeks in Auschwitz alone, separated from my family, my parents, 2 sisters, and 2 brothers, when Dr. Mengele pulled me out of a queue as we were on the way from the sea lager to the gas chamber. I was the only one picked that day personally by Mengele and his assistant. They took me to his laboratory, where I met other children. They were screaming from pain, black and blue bodies covered with blood. I collapsed from horror and terror and fainted.
Eva Moses Kor also recalls with terror what she experienced in Auschwitz. First, both she and her sister were injected with deadly germs that almost killed them. After they finally healed, they had their blood drawn 3 times a week, sometimes causing them to faint. Cross-transfusions between twins were also conducted to change boys into girls and girls into boys. One of the most horrific experiments was the effort to create a Siamese twin by connecting blood vessels and organs. The twins screamed day and night until gangrene set in. They died after 3 days. Mengele also collected dwarves, giants, hunchbacks, and any other people with physical differences, or as they called them, defects, to study genetic traits in the hope of purifying the Aryan super race. He was a sick monster, but a dedicated one. Until his very last days in Auschwitz, Mengele continued experimenting. Sometimes I wish I was so dedicated myself. One of his most notorious experiments is research on eye color. It was particularly important for the production of a pure Aryan superhuman, as eyes were the marker of race, with blue eyes considered, of course, the ideal. Mengele conducted this research in collaboration with Dr. Karen Magnussen, an assistant at the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute of Anthropology, Human Hereditary, and Eugenics in Berlin. Their goal was to uncover as much as possible about blue eyes, in particular, how they relate to other features of the so-called true Aryan race. A specific focus of their study was heterochromia, individuals with two different eye colors. Remember the two girls I mentioned at the beginning? It's because of these experiments that Mengele removed the eyes of one of them. The brutal process began with chloroform injection directly into her heart. After the girl died, the doctor harvested the eyes with his scissors and preserved them in formalin. This was normal procedure for Mengele. According to Mikolos Nyaisli, in just one day, he killed 8 twins, 6 of them with heterochromia. Dr. Magnussen must have been very happy with such samples. Unfortunately for both of them, and fortunately for everyone else, his experiments would have to come to an abrupt end. It's the 17th of January, 1945. The Russian guns can be heard close with each passing hour. Inside the gates of Auschwitz, chaos reigns. Prisoners panic, unsure what terrible fate awaits them. SS officers and Nazi soldiers frantically try to erase any evidence of their monstrous crimes. Among them, a dark figure emerges from the shadows, clutching a small suitcase with trembling hands. It's Josef Mengele, the Angel of Death. He knows his time's running out. His once relaxed attitude has been replaced with a deep anxiety for his future. His hopes for a great career shuttered by the boots and bullets of the Soviet soldiers. But even at this time of desperation, his thoughts are occupied with cold calculations. Prisoners will talk, the truth will be revealed, and his confident, all too well-known face will be the source of his demise. He heads west, leaving behind the inferno he helped create, devastated to abandon the place where he could play God. 10 days later, the Soviet army finally liberates Auschwitz. But as they enter the camp, they realize it's almost empty. Some sick inmates are left to tell the story, but the rest is just ruins, dirt, and deathly silence. Haunting remnants of unspeakable horrors. Among the first soldiers to enter the camp is Ivan Martinushkin.
It was hard to look at them. I saw the joy in their eyes. They realized that they were free. From their gaze, we could feel their gratitude to us. It was also somehow pleasant for us. We understood that we had done something good, that we had freed and saved these people from such hell.
The moment is almost unbearable to describe. There's a mix of fear, agony, uncertainty, relief, joy, and then agony again. Former Polish prisoner Wanda Draminska recalls that
at some point in the distance we noticed the silhouettes of white-clad men who were walking towards the camp. We were not sure who these men were, and we even feared that it might be the Germans who wanted to eliminate us. But the Soviet soldiers told us not to be afraid because Germans are gone.
Many of the high-ranking Germans who flee before the enemy are later arrested and tried for war crimes. The most famous of these trials takes place in Nuremberg from 1945 to 1946, where 24 prominent Nazi leaders faced justice. The result? 11 death sentences, 13 too few if you ask me. Further trials are held for lower-ranking members of the Nazi regime. The first is the doctor's trial, where 23 Nazi doctors are charged with murders, tortures, and other atrocities committed in the name of medical science. Performing medical experiments without the subject's consent is one of the charges that weigh most heavily in the final decision. In the end, 7 doctors are sentenced to death, But one major suspect is missing: Mengele. For Josef Mengele, the news of these trials brings his worst fears to life. With his actions now punishable by death and no one left to protect him, he begins erasing his tracks, determined to vanish forever. Initially, he secures a farming job in Germany under a false name. As survivors recount their horrific experiments at Auschwitz and war crimes investigations intensify, reports of his brutal experiments start appearing in the media. Newspapers, both in Germany and abroad, recount the chilling tales of the Angel of Death, a nickname that'll follow Mengele for eternity. The growing awareness of his crimes makes it impossible for him to remain in hiding. But by 1949, the infamy of Dr. Mengele of Auschwitz becomes too dangerous. Fearing capture and certain death, he flees to, surprise, surprise, Argentina. In Argentina, Mengele lives a seemingly normal life, blending into a community of ex-Nazis. He continues to evade capture by moving frequently and relying on networks of supporters. He even finds the time and space to practice medicine, illegally, of course. By 1956, he makes a daring trip to West Germany and meets his son, whom he left as a newborn. A trip that raises questions about how he was allowed to enter and leave under his real name. But soon, international efforts would intensify. Israel Special Forces find another notorious SS officer, Adolf Eichmann, who is later sentenced to death. It seems that Mengele's time is running out. I can say that I'm particularly sad about it. He narrowly escapes capture multiple times. Even when he settles in Brazil to live quietly, he's always in hiding. Mossad, West German Secret Services, Interpol, former victims, Nazi hunters are all desperately looking for him. But he never changes what he believes is his. As we learn from letters he sent to friends in Europe, he never regretted his deeds. He talks about the disagreeable results of misconjunction and the advantages of countries where European immigrants do not mix. The apartheid system in South Africa seems to be his favorite. If he could, he would do the same things again, and then the hunters would become the hunted again. But in the end, nobody won in this game of cat and mouse. Mengele died in 1979 from a stroke, still a fugitive, having never faced justice for his crimes. Mengele may have died, but his horrific legacy continues to haunt the lives of his victims. Those who survived, at least. Like many children of the Holocaust, these survivors often develop distinct behaviors that deeply impact their social lives. Vera and Olga Grossman were just 6 when they arrived at Auschwitz. Vera, who is more open about her experiences, recalls the struggle to coexist with other children. Simple questions from teachers at school would trigger panic attacks, sometimes causing her to faint. Over time, she managed to re-enter society, though her trauma never truly left. Her sister, Olga, is different. She has no memory of the camp and cannot speak about the war. For her, the horror manifests in reoccurring hallucinations of Mengele, which have led to frequent medical treatments as an adult. Many survivors never speak of their days in Auschwitz, not ever to their closest family or friends. Irene Gutman, who survived the Holocaust with her brother and was adopted by an American family, reveals that it was never an option to get integrated into their new life.
We always fit in on the surface, but never inside. We always felt apart, different. We couldn't talk about it.
Carmen Baron, another survivor, describes a profound sense of isolation.
There was a sense of embarrassment. Whenever we spoke to the normals, that's you good people, we found that there was a chasm, an unbridgeable chasm. They found it hard to listen, let alone empathize with what we are saying.
His sister, Yahud, never talks about it. Yitzhak Ganon, a Greek Jew, was 19 when he arrived in Auschwitz in 1944. His father died during the transfer, while his mother and 5 brothers were sent directly to the gas chambers. Ganon was taken to the Auschwitz hospital, where he encountered Dr. Mengele. Strapped to a table without anesthetics, Mengele removed Ganon's kidney, holding it up in front of his eyes.
I saw the kidney pulsing in his hand and cried like a crazy man.
Ganon recalls, the trauma left him so terrified of doctors that after the war, he vowed to never see one again. A decision that nearly cost him his life when he suffered a heart attack years later. Frankly, just reading this makes me get cold feet about seeing a doctor again. And the trauma is not only psychological. Menashe Reichberg and his twin brother, Ephraim, nearly escaped the gas chambers at the age of 17. trying desperately to find a way to save themselves. Ephraim proudly declared that his brother had a beautiful voice and once sang for the Germans. This caught Mengele's interest. Curious why one twin could sing while the other could not, Mengele subjected them to cruel surgeries on their vocal cords. Ephraim lost his voice entirely, only regaining the ability to speak in 1984 thanks to a special device implanted in his neck.
Until I bought this wonderful device, I couldn't speak at all. This, too, was invented by the Germans, and that is a pity.
Perhaps the worst part of the trauma is knowing that Mengele was never found and brought to justice. Their nightmares are haunted by a man who, in their minds, could return at any moment to continue his torturous experiments. They never had the chance to confront him, to ask why he destroyed their families and inflict such pain on them and their loved ones. Many held the desperate hope that he would one day be caught. Alex Shlomo Deckel's wife describes his obsession with finding Mengele.
After we were married, I discovered and gradually came to share his all-consuming passion to find Mengele and bring him to justice. Auschwitz was never far beneath the surface of his thoughts. He would try to forget, but from time to time it would emerge in episodes of unexplained rage and in periods of deep depressions that I now understand are scorched into the Auschwitz legacy of all the survivors.
But when the news of Mengele's death finally broke, it brought little comfort. Some of the survivors could never fully accept that the body found was indeed Mengele's. They point to the fact that not one of their forensic pathologists who examined the remains ever declared with a 100% certainty the body was his. Maybe deep down, they don't want to believe it. They refuse to accept that this man died before they had the chance to look at him in the eyes for one last time, their hope to overcome their trauma and gain their lives back. For them, he remains alive, a shadowy figure in his impeccable uniform, smiling as he hands them candy, only to usher in terror, pain, and death once again. And Josef Mengele wasn't the only Nazi scientist who went unpunished. There's actually another figure out there who's celebrated by millions, even considered a hero by some. But here's the thing, there's a darker side to his story that not many people talk about. Next week I'll share the real horrors behind what he did. Let me know if you want me to cover that story next, and any feedback's welcome. I'll be reading all your comments.